New Sentinel Sports Page brought to you by Image Matters on the Sports Animal, sportsanimal99.com. We continue our Sports Page Summer of Football previewing teams in 2012, getting you geared up for the 2012 season, which is almost here. We are visiting now with the head football coach at Army. Black Knights head coach Rich Ellerson joins us here on the New Sentinel Sports Page. Coach Vince Ferrara, how are you?
Hi, Vince. I'm good, thank you.
Well, how has camp been so far for you?
Well, we had our third practice this morning, so we're just getting started. We're not in full pads, won't be in full pads for another day or so. But the guys came back ready to go. We're a little bit more veteran outfit, even though we're still young. A lot of those young guys played a lot of football for us last year, so they knew exactly what to expect, and they prepared well.
Trent Steelman, very important for you, your quarterback. You held him out in the spring game with that leg injury, and certainly missed some time a year ago as well. What's his status and how has he looked so far?
He's doing fine. That was prudent to pull him out and get some things resolved that were still lingering over from the season this spring. But he had a good spring before we went and did that. And last year was a physical year. Obviously, it's a tough, physical, demanding job playing quarterback in this offense. And but it's going to be a tremendous advantage for us. Having a 4-year starter at quarterback has got to work for you at any place, much less an academy, and especially in this style of play. Having that level of experience in a guy who is recognized as a leader within the team and as tough a competitor as I've ever been around. So, for a lot of reasons, he should play a big role in our success.
Visiting with Army head coach Rich Ellerson, Black Knights a year ago at 3-9, and you mentioned, Coach, that you're an experienced outfit, and you had the nation's leading rushing attack a year ago at more than 346 yards per game. Seems like you have an awful lot of that rushing attack, especially with the backs back for you this year.
Yeah, the backfield is intact and then some. As I mentioned, we went through a lot of backs last year, but that's the bad news. The good news is they're all back, and we have a bunch of guys who have touched the ball and played meaningful reps in games, in hotly contested games. So while we still have all kinds of young guys up there that normally wouldn't have played as much as they have, they've got that experience behind them, and that'll pay some dividends. As painful as that was for us a year ago, because you left out there, you were being nice. You left out why we led the nation in rushing. We also led the nation in fumbles, and that's where you start 3 different guys at center, and you start 3 different quarterbacks, and you start 4 different freshmen at running back. You may have some issues. Now, we're not going to give ourselves an out. We're going to prepare like that's the situation we're walking into again, and make sure that we do the right things in the practice environment to set those guys up for success. Because if we can just be better with that part of the game, which everybody in the country knows they have to be competitive consistently, if we're better at that phase of the game, the record looks a lot different. The season feels a lot different. And that was achievable. It was going to be tough. It was going to be hard. But so many there were some really heroic efforts and some heroic performances by guys throughout the season trying to consistently answer all the adversity that got dished up and all the injury stuff and all the youth that was out there. So proud of the senior class from a year ago in terms of how they managed to bring it every week. Now, that will start to pay off for us. It needs to start to pay off for us, and it needs to be obvious not just to guys that come to practice and hang around our football team, but it needs to be obvious on the scoreboard starting this fall.
Typically, the rushing stats are going to be terrific. The passing stats are not going to look pretty from the outside. But what do you want to gain? What can you get out of that passing game, do you think, to at least give you some sort of threat?
Well, I think as we mature at receiver, and obviously it's all we're not going to be an aerial circus on anybody's, nobody's going to see us that way. That's just not what we are. But we need to be more proficient at some things in the throwing game to keep our opponent honest. There are some things you have to be able to challenge run support. You have to be able to challenge run rotation. And there are some. We're getting to the point where we've got some people at receiver that, we're not going to throw the ball because we have to. We're going to throw the ball because we want to. Again, that was a position that was just haunted with injury. Some of the guys that returned back there that had played a lot of football for us just had a heck of a time staying on the field. And I say the little bit of the number of guys that you mentioned earlier, the challenges Trent had in terms of staying on the field. We had issues, but that needs to be an efficient part of our game. It's not going to be, as you say, it's never going to be a statistical eye catcher. until you start looking at maybe the yards per catch and the number of those balls that end up in the end zone is a proportion of how many times we actually throw it. We need to have a great completion percentage. We need to have some of those big plays that any offense needs to change field position. Some of those need to come from the throwing game, and they need to come routinely because, frankly, we force people to play a little bit thin back there. And they need to play aggressive out of the secondary to get their numbers right in the run game, and we need to be able to capitalize on that. As I say, we're never going to be a circus, but we can certainly be an efficient and dangerous outfit when we throw the football.
Well, Coach, we've talked to you about this before, but I want you to lay this out, if you could, for our listeners that maybe haven't heard you speak to this. Talk about the commitment of your players with all of their responsibilities within a day and how football plays in that schedule with everything on their plate.
Well, the thing that we've decided here is that football is going to be part of that larger dynamic. If you pick it apart and you look at all the things we're doing and all the demands on our guys over that 47-month experience, it becomes daunting. But when you realize that the mission permeates everything that we do here, whether we're talking about playing football or chemistry or the military requirements we have in the summer and in our company. Every one of those evolutions is designed to do one thing: develop these guys into these remarkable leaders of character to serve in our Army as commissioned lieutenants. And because we're all pulling in that same direction, we're all got the same output in mind. We leverage one another. And like I say, once we get everything in sequence, we got everything cycled the right way, and we don't get in each other's way, and then the magic starts to happen. And that's that I think if we look back on this, and if I am ultimately successful here, and we get this thing going the way we really believe it has potential to go, that'll be the secret. The fact that we've got ourselves, everybody here, again, incredibly demanding routine here. But it's doable. You can do it. You can do it the right way, and you can still stack W's on Saturday afternoon. Not in spite of what you've had to do all week, but because of what you did all week, and what that brings out in you. Again, we talk about football here as being a leadership, team building laboratory. Well, everything here is designed to work on those domains, and if we can leverage that on the football field on Saturday, then all those guys cheering in the stands, those guys in the Department of Military Instruction, the guys at the Department of Physical Education, the guys from the Dean's House, the guys from USCC, they can all feel validated by what our football team does out there on Saturday afternoon because, again, we think those things are important to a winning program.
Visiting with Rich Ellerson, head football coach at Army. Just a quick word on your defense and some of the things that stand out, whether it's concerns or things you're excited about.
Well, the concern, I think a year ago we bring back some people on the second level there and in the secondary that have played a lot of football for us. Until you get the defensive front working, as you know, it's hard to play linebacker when those guys are getting rolled up on your legs, and it's hard to hold up in the secondary if the quarterback doesn't feel your defensive front. So I really believe that where we can take the greatest step forward, maybe as a football team across the board, is in the play of our defensive front. In the realm of the turnover battles and in the realm of our defensive front, if we get those two things cooking, there's an awful lot right up there that can get you going. So my hope is that when we look back on this season and we see where was the fulcrum, where did it turn, why did we enjoy the success that we did, we'll be bragging about the play of our defensive front and how they consistently kept our opponent on their heels.
You've recruited quite a bit in the Southeast, including in the state of Tennessee. I know there's one young man, Justin Fan, from Bristol, and a number of others from throughout the state of Tennessee. Talk about the talent down here in the Southeast and your opportunities to maybe recruit them down here.
Well, we have a national mandate. We're going to recruit in every state. We're going to try to have a presence. We're going to try to cull that population. Obviously, the South, they play some football in the Southeast, in the South, and we know that. And culturally, I think there's a significant proportion of the population there that gets it with respect to West Point and its mission and its reason for being here. And when we recruit to this place, we don't recruit to the Army football program first. We recruit to the destination. We recruit to what happens when you graduate, and what happens when you graduate is you become a commissioned officer in the United States Army, and that's got to resonate with a young man. He's got to see that in his future, and as I say, when you get into the Southeast, that resonates and that makes sense. So don't be surprised that we have a significant number of men from that part of the world. Having said that, we do represent the whole country. We've got them from across the board, and all the good football players aren't in Texas or California or Florida. They're pretty much everywhere you look if you just find the right guys and you recruit them for the right reasons.
Can't let you go without bringing up your game with Navy. I know you're looking to turn that series around, and the game in Philadelphia this year. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, that does come up around here every once in a while, like when you drive through the gate, and from the time you walk on post to the time you walk off. But it is an awfully big deal here. It's something we look forward to. We have that. It's a great rivalry. I would argue the greatest rivalry in sport, and because of the two great institutions that are represented on that day. We got to get that right. We've proved that we can make it an even. It's a fair fight. Last year it's a fair fight. The things that ultimately frustrate us on that evening were the same things that have frustrated us throughout the season. Talk about turnovers and guys coming out of the game when you needed them in there, and that'll always be the case. So it's not a mystery. The good news is you know we're competitive. We're right there. We're doing the right things. Now you got to do them on the next play so you can sing second when that game's over.
The Army starts out the season on September 8th at San Diego State, and then, of course, the beautiful home games there in West Point begin September 15th, hosting Northern Illinois. Coach, best of luck this season. Always nice to visit with you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you. That is Rich Ellerson, Army head football coach, here in our Sports Page Summer of Football series, previewing teams in 2012 in college football. It's a new Sentinel Sports Page brought to you by Image Matters on the Sports Animal.